Hi, good day. If this is your first time watching one of our videos on our channel, I'd like to welcome you to our channel here on Coach Anton. I'm Anton Meerkotter, known as Coach Anton, on our channel Coach Anton from Coach Anton Pty Ltd. Now, what I would like to go through today is one of our last topics on sports mental coaching for individual player or player management. Now, we are currently busy with a series on how to use sports mental coaching. And along that series, we've got many different specific topics that we're working on. And this is a subtopic, which is the last one of this topic that we're on. And if you have heard the rest, it's great. If you haven't, please go back and go have a look at some of them. I'm sure you'll be able to utilize and or benefit from many of them, such as many of the other guys have done already, including some other sports mental coaches or sports psychologists that has complemented my videos. So I definitely believe they are great material for you. And I believe that you can benefit from them. So in today's topic, we will be looking at self-talk. So the first question is, what is self-talk, Well, it says it in the word, right? Self-talk is when you're literally talking to yourself. So there's many ways of using self-talk. You could use a specific phrase, you can use specific aspects that you use to snap yourself out of a situation. And we often use those type of things, keywords, that might have a bigger meaning attached to it, such as, for example, come on Anton. But come on Anton means Anton, focus back on the game, all right? Whatever the case may be, all right? Or Anton, focus, all right? And telling myself specifically to focus on the game. But I'll be looking more at that. So that's one aspect of self-talk. But a bigger aspect of self-talk, and most people will be talking about, is what you tell yourself, the things that you get yourself to believe that might be true or not true, and in many cases not true. When it comes to a lot of negative stuff we tell ourselves. And remember that you cannot achieve more than what you attempt to achieve, all right? And that's a very, very important phrase. And often we don't attempt to achieve stuff that we don't believe we can achieve. But if we attempted it, we might have either failed or succeeded. And some that we might have believed we could not have succeeded at, we might have succeeded at. So those are some of the key things. And as many people also say, if you've never tried, of course you would have never failed. And if you have never failed, perhaps you've never tried. So that is also another question on it. And of course we know you can succeed at stuff that you tried without ever failing at it. Like maybe never spilling kettle water when it's boiling, whatever the case may be. I mean, those are things it's easy, you shouldn't be failed too easily, but it can be failed, and many of us have spilled those type of water. So I'm just using it as an example because it's a simple action, all right? Then you could say, I didn't fail, I might be great. Question is, how many times have you tried more stuff? Have you tried greater stuff? Have you moved your targets to higher targets when you achieved them? And you can say, but no, that's a little bit beyond me. How do you know? Have you tried it? Have you attempted? So those are the type of questions you've got to challenge yourself on, right? You've got to have a lot of self-talk. But there's one thing that I specifically focus on, and when it comes to your match, self-talk in a match, how do you improve your performance through self-talk? And in the game itself, as I mentioned earlier, keyword is one thing to maybe get you to focus back on a specific task or a specific thing where there's a meaning attached to it, right? Where you would be using the keyword, literally talking to yourself or even giving it to other people to use on you, those who are playing close to you in the same type of position, all right? Especially if you know that that's something you're struggling with and that they could help you with. Now, what influence self-talk? I mean, why do we sometimes just all of a sudden get negative in the game? Well, see, self-talk is influenced by a few things, and one of them is your mood, right? And what type of mood you're in. I mean, maybe you just had a fight on a phone before you got into a game. Of course, you're not going to be in a great mood, right? So the more skilled you are at being able to snap out of that and focus back on the game and on your next task and task at hand, the easier it will be for you to get out of that, but somehow it will still impact you, right? And for most, at least, that's the case. And many will never be able to snap out of that because they don't have the skill set. You practice that over time, of course. It's not going to just happen. So if you look at all these different types of influences, right? So you've got your mood. Other than that, you've got perception. Now, perception is different types of perceptions of how good you are, how good your opponent is or not, how good the weather is or not, how suitable weather is for a great game, and for your style of play. And so many things that can impact your perception that often leads you to a position of talking yourself out of the game instead of playing through the game. There's nothing wrong with observing a lot of other stuff around you, because I should observe, oh, this player is great, he's great at this or that skill, so I can start countering, oh, so how do I counter it? What am I going to do out of my skills to do well at exposing his weaknesses and or preventing his strengths from exposing my weaknesses? There's nothing wrong with such an analysis, right? The problem is when I start fearing what he's got, thinking that now he's going to outplay me, to the point that I start ignoring and or forgetting my own strengths and how I can use my strengths to expose his weaknesses, because everyone has weaknesses and everyone has strengths. So you need to focus on your strengths and play according to your strengths. So many people say, play according to your strengths, but what does it really mean? Right? So you need to go and assess that, right? You need to understand what is your strengths and how do you play according to your strengths. That is a tactical side, of course, for another topic, and would have been covered in some of my videos along the way as well. However, in self-talk, you need to, when you get negative, maybe you're having a bad game, maybe you're a tennis guy, and after one set, you realize that, oh no, I just lost this quite badly, okay? And you've got to go and say, well, how do I get myself back into this game, all right? And you'll hear many of the professionals speak about it, where they actually went after X amount of sets, went into the bathroom and literally shouted at themselves, talking to themselves, challenging themselves, arguing with themselves, debating with themselves about how they can do better, how they are better than what they are performing, all right? And why they should not doubt themselves. And they went back there and they actually performed and they did well. There's also examples in soccer where I know people got to challenge themselves at halftime. They went aside. If that's what's needed, do it. Alright? If that's what's needed, do it. Yes, one thing, don't be scared of other people thinking you're crazy because you're speaking to yourself. Okay? I tend to joke about it and say, well, everyone needs expert advice once in a while. So there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. Nonetheless, so basically getting back onto it, you have to talk to yourself. There is something positive that gets triggered in our brain when we talk to ourselves aloud. Don't be scared to do so. You've got to talk to yourself and you will succeed, you will achieve. You've got a reason, but how do you reason? What do you use to reason? Some motivation, it could be deemed as false motivation, or it could be deemed as made up ideas or just motivational thoughts, but there's a lot more, right? I tend to tell my players to focus on what they've succeeded with before, and not to think of the times they failed, but to think of how they succeeded. And if they do have the thought of where they failed coming past, then they need to think of how they corrected that and got out of that to succeed again. See, here's the thing. Some will tell you, do not think of this, do not think of that. That's dangerous. Do not tell yourself, do not think of this. Tell yourself, think of this. Tell yourself, think of that. All right? Why? Why do we not say do not? See, here's the problem. People don't understand that our brain cannot subtract and or divide. It doesn't work that way. The brain add and multiply. So when you've got thoughts running through your mind, I mean, in a day, you've got on average 36,000 thoughts running through your mind. There's 25 thoughts per minute. You can calculate how many that would be in a match, depending on which type of sports you're playing in. So just, I mean, consider that. That's a lot of thoughts, right? 36,000 per day. That's crazy, okay? Now, if you basically go look at that alone, that tells you just how many thoughts can really mess us up, right? If our thoughts are not positive. But here it comes. You've got to add thoughts that's positive. You've got to channel yourself and redirect yourself rather than to try and block out, because you're not going to block out. All right. Don't say, don't think of this. For example, if I tell you, do not think of a white fridge. Okay? For the next 10 seconds, do not think of a white fridge. Now, how many of you have just pictured a white fridge? Okay? And you probably even saw yourself opening it and saw stuff inside it. Okay? Whatever you saw, you might have seen so many different types of fridges. So the thing is, it's very difficult to not picture what you tell yourself not to do. So tell yourself what to think of. Tell yourself where to go towards, what to work towards, rather than what not to work towards and what not to do. And that's a very important part when it comes to the brain. Guide your brain by directing it, by giving input as to where it must go, what it must think of, rather than trying to block out what you do, what not wanting to think of. And I think that's very important. If that's the only tip you take from today, that would really be great. So here's a few things, right? If your self-belief is not strong, then what you've got to do is to change your self-belief, all right? And one of the best ways to change your self-belief is like what I referred to earlier, is to go back to successes you've had, small successes you've had, and where you came from before you achieved them. Because we all develop as we go along. And as you go along, you improve on certain aspects, all right? And surely, you don't repeat all the same mistakes because you tend to get out of them. But sometimes there's a mistake you repeat, and the reason for it is because you keep thinking about it and you're fearing that you're going to do it again. Remember, in one of my previous videos, I also mentioned the saying of what you fear you attract, what you avoid comes back, and what you face disappears. So guide yourself at facing it. Tell yourself how to face it. Don't try to run from it. Don't try to hide from it. Don't fear it. Rather, find a way that you can tell yourself how to face it the next time it happens. All right? And that is the true solution. I can't stop my opponent from taking his best shot. What I can do is I can teach myself how to face it. Perhaps find something in his rhythm that he does every time before he takes that shot. If it means having to study him before a game, then that's what I do. All right? And then I know this is what he does before he takes that shot. If you're good enough or trained well enough to assess someone in a match to see what he does, only problem is then he would already have succeeded 1 or 2 times prior to that. But if he does succeed with something you don't know he does, you can use that by assessing it quickly and saying, oh, I figured out what he does. So there's normally something in the pattern, because people have patterns on good things they do, because they're normally habituous, all right? Especially if they're doing it more than once. Then it definitely could be something that's done as a habit. Under pressure, without having to stress about it and still performing, most of the time that's linked to being a habit already. Being in an habituous stage of learning. Now, if you basically go look at that alone, if you pick up that pattern, you can actually see when he or she is going to do something, and therefore prepare yourself accordingly. So if you can guide yourself and direct yourself as to what to do at that time so you can be ready to face it, then you can face it. And if you do not know what, then ask your coach, right? Normally in most sporting codes, you can ask your coach. This is what I see is doing. What can I do to face that? Even if it means, for example, soccer, at halftime only you're going to get that chat. But hopefully you've got a hot day and there's a quick water break, and instead of stressing about the heat, you actually see it as an opportunity to go speak to your coach about this situation. All right? And you quickly speak to your coach about a situation, he gives you 1 or 2 inputs, and you go back and you play. Now, this is not supposed to be allowed, but it is done. All right? So you can do it. Nobody can go and give you a red card for doing that. At most, your coach could get a warning for giving you advice or speaking to you, but all coaches are speaking to the players at that time. They're using it. And that is something that I encourage. If there's not a rule put against it, then use it. All right? So that's a key thing. Where there's no rules against something, you can use it. So that's a very key way. So look for those opportunities where there's not a rule against it that you can use to get the necessary guidance, advice where you feel like you need it. So those are important aspects, right? Obviously it differs from sporting codes. I mean, there's certain things, there's some debate whether it should be a sport or not, but I say it should be like chess, right? Where the question is, that person's not allowed to speak to anyone and get advice from anyone, all right? So it's very difficult. So he's gonna have to look back at the game afterwards and make sure that it doesn't happen again and again in the future. Unfortunately, that's too late for the game is in. Or he's gonna have to think back of a previous instance where someone did something similar and what he did that got him out of it, and what he could have done different that could have got him out of it when he assessed or analyzed his game. Right, so that is important. When you basically do all these things, the key thing behind it is stay confident and find a solution that you can believe in, that you can believe will work. And if it doesn't work, well, you know what? You've learned from it. So next time you can redirect it into something that might work. Don't be afraid of failing. There is absolutely no professional out there who's never failed. Okay? I mean, I'm speaking about this as Lionel Messi received his first red card ever for Barcelona in a match. Now, a red card for Barcelona in a match. This is a player who's played it for how long? Right? We're now in 2001. He's played it for many, many years. And in this time period, this is his first. Guess what? I don't think he's going to make the same mistake again too quickly. Right? And in my opinion, he's been lucky not to get it more recently as well, because he have shown a lot of signs of frustration in games. And whether that comes from pride or arrogance or the current club scenario he's finding himself in, I honestly do not know. But it's for him to identify so that he can redirect it and channel it. Instead of thinking, this guy is obstructing me, get out of my way, which is what he did literally, all right? Got annoyed of someone applying obstruction, which is a foul. But what he did is a red card offense, retaliating. And that's just the rule of the game. So he's got to also control that, as he's done in the past. So I don't know what happened, but obviously there's many things that could cause a frustration. If you've got things causing a frustration in your life, try to identify them and try to work a way around them. Don't try to avoid them, face them, all right? I can't avoid the thought. The thought is going to cross my mind, but what I can do is I can rechannel my thoughts onto my task, onto my next action that I need to do. And that will help me to not think about that at that moment and to think of what I need to focus on. I hope what I've said have made some sense to you. And I'm sure there's a lot of things I've mentioned here that can really help you. Now, in the event of you looking at utilizing my skills for either your club or you as a player, or if you're an agent for the players that you're managing, whatever the case may be, if you're looking at utilizing my services, I also run workshops, and obviously I do personalized deals where I do one-on-one sessions and consultations, and you can definitely set up any of those with me. My contact details should appear on your screen right now. And I do hope that through our whole series, we've really helped you so far and you learned quite a lot. And if you've not looked at the rest of the series, please remember, go and look at some of them. There should be links appearing on the screen. So on my right, you should be able to see a link to a specific video that I believe you should go and have a look at. And that perhaps is to one of this specific group of videos that I've got, the main topic, which is that for individual players, right? So how to use sports mental coaching for individual players or player management. And on my other side, you should be seeing a playlist, the whole playlist of how to use sports mental coaching, in which all our videos are in so far. This is the 19th video, and it is the 18th video of the series, since the first one is the actual wall skeleton or layout that we will be following and or giving you guys. So thank you so much for your support, and I hope to hear from any of you, either in the comments below or by you contacting me wanting to use my services. May you have a great day, and remember, I'm Coach Anton, keeping your mind in the game.